Living on the street now, this place is like a ghost town. I never in my life seen New York like this. This is so ugly, it's incredible. I cannot muster up how many people have died. We got friends up around here that we haven't seen in months.
We call it Hotel E. I counted when I worked on the E train years ago, 100 homeless on one train. And this is, we're talking 2009, 2010. They're spread out, no masks, bad smell, and that carries disease.
You think COVID's in the homeless community?
Yeah, they'll wash. They'll wash.
If I gotta sleep, sometime I get on the train. But I would rather take my chances on that instead of going to a crowded shelter where I know that this is it.
This is what they call Hotel E. This is apparently the one that most people are on. And during this time of COVID, we're trying to see exactly what that entails. We have all of our PPE on. We've been very stringent about our PPE.
At this point, and this is as of last night, 59 workers from the Metropolitan Transportation Authority had died as a result of COVID. And when you compare that to the NYPD, when you compare that to the FDNY, those numbers are significantly higher.
There is nothing in a contract that said I signed up to die in a pandemic.
New York appears to be dying. I'm not playing. I refuse to go to a shelter because this is where it will be harboring at. I prefer to take my chances out here in the wilderness.
We take situations like this very seriously. We understand the density of New York, the complexity of New York. Whatever happens internationally, it winds up at our doorstep relatively quickly. So we've been through situations like this before. We're very proactive. I don't take anything for granted. Precaution is always the best practice. Preparedness is always the best practice, and that's what we do here in New York.
Where are you from?
My name is Lanier Wheeler. I'm born in Brooklyn, New York, raised in Jamaica, Queens, Rochdale Village, Section 4 for life, baby. And I'm a train dispatcher with New York City Transit. Previously, I was an assistant train dispatcher for 6 years, and I was conductor for 12 years. The things that they're putting out in the media about blaming the CDC for their lack of response, telling the workers initially that wearing masks, they couldn't do it. They were telling us as supervisors to tell train operators, conductors, tower operators that they couldn't wear masks because they were scared customers.
Well, here in New York, this has been going back several weeks now. Into early March, the Transport Workers Union had been pushing for its workers to allow them to wear masks. Now, the MTA initially said that that went against their regulations, that they were not to wear those masks. It turned into a big struggle. Eventually, the MTA backed down to the point where subway workers and bus operators were allowed to wear these masks without fear of penalty.
They started actually giving out protection equipment, they call it PPE, about 2 weeks ago. So 6 weeks too late.
One piece of this struggle has been that the MTA initially did not distribute masks to some frontline transit workers.
From what I know, and I can't give a source, but somebody that I can rely on has told me that they had them in storage all this time, but they didn't give them out.
I reported a story about some of the stockpiles of those N95 masks that they had in some bus depots. The bus union leaders were crying out for those, saying, give them to our workers. Unfortunately, the toll has been high among transit workers.
These N95 masks that they gave out, everyone has to sign for them because they only can give them out every 5 days. They actually gave them with paper bags so they can put them in, so they can retain them. Now, anybody who's been on a train, you're gonna sweat, perspire. You know, it's not the greatest of conditions. Those masks aren't lasting 5. So that means everybody has to bring their own stuff. Chairman Floyd is trying to say that we were only following the CDC guideline. But I say, and a lot of other people say, that you had a pandemic response plan written from 7-8 years ago now, and you didn't follow it at all.
There are no confirmed cases of coronavirus in New York thus far. We would expect as time goes on that we will find a case of coronavirus. If you look at the spread of it around the world, we would expect that, and we are prepared for that. We have taken a lot of time to put protocols in place and quarantine procedures, etc.
As of right now, there's over 80 deaths in transit. Governor Cuomo and whoever else, blood is on their hands. The failure to shut down the transit authority has spread this virus rampant within the rank and file.
Good evening. The city, at the heart of a public health crisis in China, is shutting its public transport network to try to prevent the spread of a virus that's already infected hundreds of people.
They claim that they are cleaning every 72 hours. It's a bunch of bullshit.
This is the last stop on the E-train. This is the Jamaica Queens station, where you can see there are still homeless people on the train. They are not removed, and it makes it impossible, therefore, to clean the train. We were there a little past 1 a.m. on the 28th of April, 2020, and we observed one gentleman working hard to clean the train. And you guys, look at the size of this thing. It's impossible for him to possibly clean this entire train by himself. I can't believe they would ask one person to try to clean this. If I were to venture a guess, it's that he's spot cleaning wherever he can. But he only had 10 minutes. Probably got to a couple benches, and then we took off. And we know because this is the train that we took back ourselves to go back to Manhattan.
Train operators and conductors come back and report to me. They tell me on the train how disgusting and filthy it is. The cab, their operating positions in which they operate, they have to clean them themselves when they get on the train. Nobody's cleaning these cabs, and they're filthy.
As a comparison, in South Korea, once COVID hit, they did a massive deep clean on all of their trains, and they hired more staff, 100 more people, to be able to regularly disinfect the subways. Not so much in New York City.
They've cut so many cleaner jobs in the last few years, they don't have enough cleaning.
It defies logic to not either shut down or deep clean the subway trains during the biggest pandemic of our lives.
Clear that they don't want to hear about it. They've been knowing this has been going on for about 30 years, right? 30-some years.
We all talked about how it's contagious, touching surfaces, etc. Reduce the density. So we're going to take very dramatic actions in that regard to reduce the number of people in contagious environment.
And I know you're a veteran. I mean you no disrespect. I'm just trying to get your story out.
Yes, sir.
Do you live on the street?
Yes.
How long have you lived on the streets here in New York
10
City?
years.
And what branch of the military?
Army.
Army.
This is my veteran's ID. My name is Gerald Hudson. If I gotta sleep, sometime I get on the train, I open up all the ventilation. You understand me? All the windows and everything, so we can constantly have fresh air. You know, you have to I always sleep sitting up. My legs are getting fat because of that. blood is not circulating properly. But I would rather take my chances on that instead of go into a crowded shelter where I know that this exists.
And then you get to sleep.
Yes, I can sleep, and that's how I get rest.
Well, the homeless problem has been an ongoing problem for decades, but it has gotten worse since this pandemic has started. Well,
I've actually been surprised to see very few homeless on the streets here.
because they have taken shelter in subways, you know, especially at night. You know, when the trains get to the last stop, the terminal, and we have a layup, or you know, we have to clean out a train. There's always a problem getting homeless people off.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Dion.
That's what we're trying to do.
And we are at risk. They consider us first responders or essential personnel, but I think that we have been expendable personnel. It's up to 80 people, and I know personally 10 that have passed away.
But you're not alone. You're not alone. Nobody is alone. We are all in the same situation.
These were close relationships. I've had a relationship with them one way or another. So it hurts. I feel like they didn't give a fuck about our safety. They gave a fuck about moving trains and their revenue from their passengers. That's all they've ever cared about. And it's become very apparent with this pandemic how many people have to die before they give a fuck.
Today, he shut down New York City's remaining playgrounds, frustrated with people who aren't social distancing.
How reckless and irresponsible and selfish for people not to do it on their own. Who else has to die for you to understand you have a responsibility in this?
Hand sanitizer, Lysol, Clorox wipes, all these things are, how do I put it, how it was for a guy in jail with cigarettes. They're hard to find.
We are introducing New York State Clean hand sanitizer made conveniently by the state of New York. It also comes in a variety of sizes. It has a very nice floral bouquet. Little I detected lilac, hydrangea, tulips. What does it smell like to you? Tulips, yes. We'll be providing this to governmental agencies, schools, the MTA, prisons, etc. Because you can't get it on the market.
Even though it says New York City Transit, it is a state-run agency. The state controls it. So Mr. de Blasio, he doesn't have any control anyway, because anytime he says something about the education department, he's overruled by the government, who wants to have the last say in everything. So yes, it's on the government. A lot of people are saying, you know, he's doing a good job and he's shown leadership, you know, by speaking out about this pandemic and stuff. And that's all fine and good, but you know what? You can't out-slick a can of oil, son. I know what you're about. See, because when it came to the response of my fellow co-workers and their safety, every time you was asked about it, you skirted the question. There's never been a response when it comes to the safety of New York City Transit workers. And then when they did respond, his answer was, God bless them, they know what they signed up for. Fuck you. What do you mean you know what we signed up for? We didn't sign up for this. There is nothing in a contract that said I signed up to die in a pandemic. Nothing. I would take the East train to Queens, especially late at night.
The next stop is 7th Avenue.
You'll get some interesting footage, without question. Without question. You will get some interesting footage. I worked on the E train on the midnights for quite a number of years.
So we're here on the E train, which they call the Hotel E. This is the one we've heard a lot of stories about it being full of homeless people. And our hearts go out to those homeless people. And we are concerned about the spread of COVID in these trains and the impact that it's also having on the transit authority personnel. So the goal of this expedition this evening is to show what we find, and we don't know what we're gonna find, and to share it with you. When you get off at Jamaica Center, there's a lot of cops, and they are trying to get everyone off of the subways, trying to get them to go to homeless shelters, but they don't go. There's police officers, there's social workers, there's people who want to do a good job, but it's the powers that be that stop it. And it really does make you wonder, is this one of the leading causes for the transmission of the COVID-19 virus in New York City? Just got off the E train at the Jamaica Van Wyck stop. Rode it for about 20 minutes. We're going to continue to the end, but wanted to take a break and just share our thoughts. It is everything that it's been described as. It is filthy. Doesn't that look like moss and mold and nastiness? I love my country, but this makes me ashamed. I don't know how to say it. It is embarrassing. It's incredible when you think about how a subway system would work. It's like veins in a body. This is like an artery channel for the virus to spread throughout the body of New York City. Emily wouldn't even sit on the seats, and I don't blame her. I had to sit on the seat so I could get a shot. I had hip surgery 2 months ago, so I'm still working on my balance. In order for me to get the shots that I wanted to get, I had to sit down, and it was disgusting. We're gonna burn the clothes when we're done with this. Even with the PPE I'm wearing, you don't feel protected. Guys, we are standing, and what I feel is the absolute breeding ground for COVID, and it's kind of scary, to be honest with you. And I gotta say, for those watching this, if you think it's easy for me to photograph the homeless people on that train, it's not. It's very uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable doing it. Truly, I do. I don't like taking pictures of people anonymously. I don't like being in people's space. I don't like that. But I also have a story to tell. And the story is to try and improve things for the city, for the people in the city, for the homeless, and for the impact the homeless could have on the non-homeless, for everyone involved. This is an incredibly serious matter of truly life and death.
You know, when we got on the E train tonight, I noticed two older gentlemen. One, before he sat down, he had his Lysol wipes, and he was wiping down everything, you know, cleaning up, and because you're just not sure. Just like Jason said, it's like a breeding ground. It's the veins. It's totally understandable that COVID could spread all throughout the city from there. So the gentleman, he wiped down his whole seat with a Lysol wipe before sitting. And then there was another guy, when he got on, he stayed so close to the edge, he hardly wanted to move in there. That's how close to the edge he wanted to be. He wanted nothing to do with sitting down, or he wanted to touch as little as he possibly could in there. You know, it's really sad to see all of the people going back and forth between being awake and sleeping while on that E train, and I can see how it can have that horrible name of Hotel E. I've never seen anything like it.
We just saw the train that we rode in on, did the loop, and we saw those same people go back. So they just stay on the train all night for shelter and stay warm.
While filming down there, Emily went to record the subway route map. Well, this really creepy guy came down and evidently was very ill and started spitting all over the platform and everywhere, leaving stuff everywhere, germs. It was disgusting. Just listen to this audio. When he got within about 20 feet of her, I said, Emily, it's time to come back.
When there are so many people out of work, truly people out of work, you really can't afford to hire some extra people to clean the damn subways. Where is the city's responsibility for the product they are providing? See, why is the city not negligent when it's allowing its product that they charge for to potentially spread a pandemic within its city? Why are they not liable for lawsuits? Maybe they are. And if they are, I'd be suing the hell out of them. I'm sure there's people who work for companies like Ecolab, cleaning companies all over the state, the city, that would love the opportunity to clean the subways and make them sanitary for everyone involved. And you have to ask yourself, why is it that there are more transit workers who have died from COVID than the fire department and the police department?
My name is Dion, from Corona, Queens.
Yeah, what's your experience like on the hotel, on the E-train, on what they call the Hotel E?
Ever since the COVID breakout, there's less people riding the train, more homeless people riding the train.
Do you feel like it's a clean and safe environment for you to be able to be riding the train?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised that with everything going on, that they're not making sure that the trains are clean. I'm pretty surprised that they're not making sure that the homeless have PPE. It's pretty crazy to me.
Like, I just stopped right here. You got people from BRC. They're from the homeless. They're for the homeless. So they don't ride the train. They just stay at the last stop and go to the train cars and ask the homeless people if they need shelter. A lot of them don't want to go nowhere.
Why don't you go to the shelter?
Because that's too congested. People are too close. Understand, the only thing that would happen was the thing that they came up with at first, putting the homeless people in hotels, a room by themselves.
Did they do that?
No, they didn't do that either. And we're out here, and we don't know if we're gonna live or die the next day. I've seen quite a few of us get sick.
That's literally going to save lives.
Starting today, this hospital can help save about 1,000 lives at a time.
So by next week, you have 3,000 beds?
Yes, sir.
It's pretty incredible.
In a few moments, the crew of the Navy hospital ship USNS Comfort will embark for New York City.
All of this begs the question, at a time of a worldwide pandemic, in the area that is the epicenter of the pandemic, why would places like the Javits Center and the Comfort go virtually unused when there are homeless people riding the trains, potentially spreading a disease to the essential workers that it's left open for? And these same essential workers are coming back onto the trains, potentially bringing COVID. It just seems like such a waste of huge resources that were expended to try to help this problem.
Do you feel like the city's doing a good job, or the state's doing a good job, or what? If not,
I don't feel like they're doing enough.
What could they do better?
Take the homeless people off the train, start testing more people.
I know there's programs out there where cities give out clean needles to stop the spread of AIDS and other things as it relates to drug use, illegal drug use. They hand out condoms to help prevent pregnancy. Here we are in the middle of the world's biggest pandemic in 100 years with massive unemployment, and the city can't post people in the subways to hand out PPE to protect everyone. This is something that would protect everyone. They preach and preach and preach social distancing and PPE to us, yet they do nothing about preventing it for everyone in their city.
The next stop is Sunset Boulevard, Archer Avenue, JFK.
Just think about this. We're being told to be socially distant, to shut down our stores, to ruin our economy, yet we keep a transit system running throughout one of the biggest cities in the world, one of the most populated cities in the world, where COVID is the most rampant, and you have the filthiest conditions on the subways, and the city's doing nothing proactively to clean them, to hand out PPE. It blows my mind. It seems to me that that would be the first step rather than a step that still hasn't been taken. Our experience on the Hotel E is, it's unfortunately for the people involved, it's revolting. And I can understand when Lionel said that he feels like the city and state treat the transit system, like the people on it, are expendable. There's not a single care in the world for the trains and the people riding them from what we have just experienced.
Less than 12 hours from the time that Emily and I filmed, Governor Cuomo ordered the MTA to come up with a cleaning plan for all subway trains.
Why didn't we just close down subways and buses? Because you close down the subways and the buses in New York City. Don't expect the nurses and the doctors to be able to get to the hospital.
2 days later, the governor shut down the night shift and offered free ride sharing to essential workers. Today, May 2nd, he's down there cleaning the subways.
Governor Cuomo was hands-on during a tour of the subway car cleaning operation at an MTA maintenance facility in Queens today. The city is, of course, shutting down the subways from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. every day. This so the cars themselves, as well as the stations, can be cleaned during the coronavirus pandemic.
Unfortunately, this just comes too late. The height of the crisis has passed. As of yesterday, it was the lowest death total in months in New York City. The lack of a sense of urgency for something that they've known about for decades could possibly be the cause of why COVID spread faster in New York City than it did anywhere in the world. As a photographer, I understand the power of a great photo op, and I also understand the power of raw reality.
The only thing we want to do is go back to our families safe. Now, there's a lot of transit workers who are going back and giving it to their loved ones.
This documentary is dedicated to all the lives lost, to all the families who haven't had a chance to grieve their loss.
But this right here is so spooky. It's scary because you don't know where the enemy is.
To all the homeless who really have no place to go. And to a world that's been terrified by a global pandemic.
You do not help the homeless by letting them stay on a subway car and sleep on a subway car in the middle of a global pandemic.
Coronavirus battered the Big Apple once again today, with more than 270 deaths. Yesterday was the state's deadliest day so far, with 731 fatalities.
The next stop is Briarwood.
The number of coronavirus deaths here in New York City alone has topped 4,000.
Well, thank you, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm just going to take a few pictures of you.
Yeah.
Keep it safe. We are definitely going into some very dirty places, but we are readily prepared with some disinfectant wipes. We've changed our gloves, and we're wiping down all of our gear before we even think about getting into the car or putting it into our car. So again, wiping it down, staying safe, keeping clean. So that's what it's all about.